In just 48 hours, the most powerful woman in Europe became invisible to Washington. Ursula von der Leyen didn't send a formal diplomatic request. She bypassed every protocol, every chain of command, every carefully constructed diplomatic channel that has governed transatlantic relations for decades. Cameras captured something unprecedented. The European Commission president had personally called the Trump transition team. What desperation drove the architect of European sovereignty to abandon all dignity in pursuit of a single phone call? The timeline reveals a political catastrophe unfolding in real time. At exactly 14:27 CET on Tuesday afternoon, sources inside the Berlaymont building confirm that von der Leyen placed the first call herself. Not through her chief of staff, Björn Seibert, not through the European External Action Service, not through established diplomatic channels. She personally dialed the number to Mar-a-Lago, requesting an immediate audience with President-elect Trump. The request itself was extraordinary. According to leaked internal memos, von der Leyen offered to fly to Florida within 24 hours, abandoning her scheduled meetings with African Union leaders and postponing critical budget negotiations with the European Parliament. This was not diplomacy. This was panic disguised as statesmanship. But the most revealing detail emerged from intercepted communications between Brussels and the German Chancellery. Von der Leyen had prepared what insiders describe as a survival package, a comprehensive offer designed to prevent the complete collapse of EU-US economic relations. The numbers are staggering: $180 billion in additional defense spending commitments over 3 years, immediate elimination of digital services taxes targeting American tech giants, and unprecedented access to European energy markets for US companies. The desperation becomes clear when examining the timeline. Sources reveal that von der Leyen had received advance intelligence about Trump's planned tariff announcements. The incoming administration was preparing to implement a crushing 25% levy on all European automotive exports, effectively destroying Germany's car industry overnight. Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz would face immediate extinction in their largest foreign market. The economic implications were apocalyptic. At 16:15 CET, exactly 1 hour and 48 minutes after her initial call, von der Leyen's office received a response. Not from Trump, not from his transition team, not even from a low-level aide. The response came through a third-party consultant. The president-elect's calendar is fully committed through the inauguration period. The rejection was clinical, brutal, and absolute. But what happened next reveals the true scale of the crisis. Von der Leyen didn't accept the refusal. At 18:42 CET, she placed a second call. This time, she went through German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, asking him to personally intercede with Trump's team. The conversation, according to sources in Berlin, was described as uncomfortable and desperate. Scholz himself was powerless. Intelligence reports confirm that the German chancellor had already been rebuffed by the Trump transition team following his own attempts to secure a meeting. The message from Washington was consistent and devastating. Europe would have to wait. There would be no special treatment, no grandfather clauses, no diplomatic courtesy calls. The era of European exceptionalism was over. The third attempt came at 22:17 CET. Von der Leyen's team reached out through Emmanuel Macron's office, hoping that Trump's previously expressed admiration for the French president might create an opening. The French response was swift and humiliating. Macron had already tried and failed. Trump's team had made it clear that any European leader seeking audience would need to demonstrate concrete value before any meeting would be considered. By Wednesday morning, the silence from Washington had become deafening. No acknowledgement of the calls, no diplomatic courtesies, no scheduled follow-up meetings. The Trump transition team had effectively ghosted the European Union's highest-ranking official. In the brutal calculus of international relations, this was not just a snub. It was a declaration of irrelevance. The markets responded immediately. The euro dropped 1.3% against the dollar by midday Wednesday. European automotive stocks went into freefall, with BMW losing $2.8 billion in market capitalization within 6 hours. Volkswagen shares plummeted 8.4% in Frankfurt trading, while Mercedes-Benz faced its steepest decline since the 2008 financial crisis. The DAX index in Frankfurt suffered its worst single-day decline in 8 months, dragging down the broader StoxX Europe 600 by 2.1%. London's FTSE 100 followed suit, shedding $47 billion in value as investors frantically repositioned for a world without the special relationship. Credit default swaps on European sovereign debt spiked to their highest levels since the Greek crisis. Italian bonds faced immediate pressure as traders calculated the cascade effects of potential U.S. tariffs on European luxury goods. The panic wasn't confined to equity markets. European corporate bond yields jumped 15 basis points across the board, signaling that institutional investors were pricing in systemic economic disruption. Currency traders began shorting the euro aggressively, betting that Washington's silence was the prelude to economic warfare. Investors understood what politicians were afraid to admit. Europe had lost its seat at the table. Intelligence sources reveal that von der Leyen spent Wednesday evening in crisis meetings with her closest advisors. The European Commission was facing its greatest existential threat since its founding. Security footage from the Berlaymont building shows lights burning in the Commission president's office until 3:47 a.m. Thursday morning. Staff members described the atmosphere as funeral-like, with senior officials speaking in hushed tones and avoiding eye contact in the corridors. The psychological toll on von der Leyen became apparent during Thursday's scheduled video conference with African Union representatives. Multiple sources confirmed that she appeared visibly shaken, stumbling over prepared remarks and displaying uncharacteristic nervousness. Her signature composed demeanor had cracked under the weight of Washington's calculated indifference. Aides noted that she kept checking her phone obsessively, hoping for any communication from the Trump transition team that never came. Behind closed doors, the crisis was tearing apart European unity. Chancellor Scholz privately blamed von der Leyen for catastrophic diplomatic mismanagement, while French officials leaked their frustration with Brussels' amateur-hour approach to transatlantic relations. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán seized the moment to publicly question whether the EU needed leadership that clearly cannot command respect in Washington. The vultures were circling. Without access to Trump, without any channel of communication, without any guarantee of economic protection, the EU was staring into an abyss of economic warfare. The desperation reached its peak on Thursday morning when von der Leyen's team leaked details of their proposed concession package to Reuters and Financial Times simultaneously. This was political suicide disguised as transparency. By making their offerings public, they hoped to create pressure on Trump to respond. Instead, they revealed the weakness of their position to the entire world. The leaked document revealed the extent of European panic. Beyond the $180 billion defense spending and elimination of tech taxes, von der Leyen had offered to personally oversee the dismantling of EU environmental regulations that conflicted with American energy interests. She proposed fast-tracking U.S. companies through European procurement processes and creating special economic zones where American businesses would operate under preferential tax arrangements. These were not negotiating positions. These were surrender terms drafted by a leader who understood that her political survival depended entirely on Trump's mercy. The European project, built on ideals of sovereignty and multilateralism, was being sacrificed on the altar of economic necessity. But the most damning revelation came from internal EU communications intercepted by intelligence services. Von der Leyen had privately admitted to her closest advisors that Europe was functionally dependent on American economic and security protection. Without U.S. support, the European Union would face immediate collapse within 18 months. The 48-hour silence from Washington was not bureaucratic inefficiency. It was strategic humiliation. Trump's team understood that von der Leyen's desperation was weakness, And weakness in international relations is blood in the water. Every hour of silence increased European panic and decreased their bargaining position. By Thursday evening, the political implications became clear. Von der Leyen's credibility within the European Council was evaporating. Member states that had supported her leadership were quietly expressing doubts about her ability to navigate the Trump era. The woman who had positioned herself as Europe's answer to American unilateralism was reduced to begging for scraps from the very administration she had spent years criticizing. The silence continues. As of Friday morning, no response from Washington, no acknowledgement from the Trump transition team, no diplomatic outreach from Republican leadership. The European Commission president, who once declared that Europe would be a geopolitical player, has been rendered invisible by a calculated campaign of indifference. The ultimate question facing Europe is no longer whether von der Leyen will secure her meeting with Trump. The question is whether the European Union can survive the revelation of its own powerlessness. When the most powerful woman in Europe can be ignored by an administration that hasn't even taken office yet, the post-war order isn't just changing, it's already dead. The markets know it, the politicians know it. The only question remaining is whether European citizens will accept the reality that their continent has become a junior partner in its own future. The 48 hours of silence from Washington may be the most expensive quiet period in European history, and the bill is still being calculated.